What's going on, guys? Wayne here. So look, if you run a skid steer or a CTL, adding a hydraulic auger attachment to one of those machines is one of the simplest but smartest upgrades that you can make. Adding an auger turns your machine into a fence line workhorse, a tree planting rig, even a foundation drilling beast. So today we're going to be drilling deep into everything you need to know before you drop cash on an auger, from matching drive motors and hydraulic flow to choosing the right bit, extensions, and even replacement teeth. So hopefully by the end of this video, you're going to be able to spec an auger that chews through anything your job site throws at it without burning up a gearbox or your bank account. Now, when you're matching an auger to a skid steer or CTL, your decision process should really start with the machine's hydraulic flow and the amount of pressure that the machine is sending to an attachment. Now, flow is going to dictate how fast the auger bit is going to be able to spin. Pressure is going to determine how much torque that the motor, the drive motor that's powering the auger, is going to be able to deliver to the bit and thus the ground. So we've covered flow and we've covered pressure. So the third variable, like we said, is what you're actually going to be drilling into, the soil type and really the size or the diameter of the hole that you're planning on drilling. Now, drilling into loose sand and really needing like a 9-inch diameter hole for a fence post, that's going to need far less muscle than fractured shale and a 30-inch footer. So the good news is that the rule of thumb for this is pretty simple. The nastier the ground or the bigger the bit that you need, the bigger the hole that you need to drill, the more that you're going to want to bias your setup, the auger that you pick, the more that you're going to want to bias this setup toward torque, even if that means sacrificing speed or RPMs. So how do you bias toward torque? Well, when you're matching an auger to your machine, you're going to want to note your skid steer or CTL's flow rate. And what you're going to want to do is try to take that flow rate and match it to the lower end of a given auger's recommended flow range. That's really the quickest way to gain torque without changing anything else, because torque goes up or rises as speed goes down. I'll say that again. Torque rises as speed falls. All right, so now we're going to move on to choosing a drive motor, trying to figure out which drive motor really fits your needs. And you can really think of drive motors in 3 overlapping tiers. Now, as part of putting this whole thing together, we spoke to 2 different manufacturers of auger attachments for CTLs and skid steers, and that's Blue Diamond and Danuser. So what we're gonna do is try to break a lot of this down when it comes to choosing the right drive and maybe even model for specific applications to the models produced by these 2 manufacturers. So we'll start with entry-level drive. Now, these are really sized for machines that send somewhere between 8 and 16 gallons per minute of flow. And they're really meant for spinning smaller bits quickly in lighter soils. All right, now moving up to the mid-tier drive units, that's going to include Blue Diamond's EX3 and EX4, as well as the Danuser EP1530. These models really sit in that 15 to 22 gallon per minute sweet spot, and this is kind of the range or flow range or type of auger drive that most contractors are running. It's going to give you enough torque for everyday holes, and the EP1530 in particular can support diameters all the way up to 36 inches. Now finally, you have your heavy torque models, and that would be the EX4 HF model and up in the Blue Diamond lineup, or Danuser's EP2035. That's going to step you up to higher displacement motors, built-in relief valves, and torque figures north of 4,000 foot-pounds. And that's going to allow you to muscle 36-inch rock bits or bullet teeth without stalling. Now, when it comes to a rule of thumb for picking the right auger size, if you're torn between 2 sizes, go for the bigger drive. Underflowing a high torque motor just means slowing down a little bit. However, you want to avoid overflowing a light drive at all costs. Now, when it comes to getting the right auger setup for the ground you're going to be working in, Another important decision that you're going to have to make is the actual bit that you go to work with. So let's talk a little bit about the different types of bits available for augers and how they differ. Now, auger bits can definitely come in specific bits for specific jobs such as rock or landscaping, but they also kind of come in different varieties based on the type of build or the type of kind of construction, the actual makeup of the bit itself. And let's start with the standard fab bit. Now, these standard fabricated bits, these use bolt-on teeth, and those are really good for everyday dirt or sandy loam. And these are really going to be your budget or cheaper options, kind of, get in at a lower price point. Now, then you move up to a cast head or heavy-duty bit. These are going to be a more premium option, but still for everyday tasks. These bits swap the bolt-on teeth that you find on the fab bits for push-in teeth that are locked into a one-piece steel casing. And as such, they're going to shrug off densely compacted clay and mixed rock for far longer than the standard fab bits. But let's say the site turns truly savage and your machine is facing down solid rock, concrete, an asphalt surface. You want a rock bit with carbide bullet teeth and hard-faced flighting. That's the only thing that's going to survive that type of job. Just remember, this type of bit is going to demand about 3,000 pounds of down pressure and a high torque drive to chip solid stone. Now, finally, there are landscaping bits as well, and landscapers really swear by tree planting taper bits, 30 inches wide at the top and 15 at the bottom, because these carve the exact cone that a root bulb needs while producing half the spoil. Now, whatever style you run, insist on double flighting. 2 ribbons clear spoil twice as fast as single flight bits. All right, now what about everything else? Extensions, mounts, and adapters. Now, a standard auger is 4 feet long, so the average CTL or skid steer can really hit nearly 6 feet of depth before the motor bottoms in the hole. Now, if you need to drill deeper, you're going to need to bolt on a fixed extension of 2, 4, or 6 feet, or if you want the ability to choose more than one extended depth and be able to kind of vary the depth based on the job that you're doing, then you'll want to choose a variable or sliding extension. Now, these variable extensions nest inside any 9-inch plus bit. That lets you drill 6 feet, retract, then drive to 8 without unpinning the drive. Now, for more awkward reaches, a telescoping boom mount gives the loader several extra feet of horizontal or vertical stretch. And if half your fleet still runs round shank bits, inexpensive hex to round adapters keep that legacy steel earning money. Let's go over a few real-world auger loadouts that are going to actually work in the field. So first up, picture a fencing crew in sandy soil punching 9-inch posts all day. A Blue Diamond EX2 drive on an older mid-2000s skid steer, that's going to spin fast enough to beat hand diggers every time. And a basic fabricated bit is all they'll ever need. But shift to a landscaping unit planting 18-inch root balls in mixed clay. That's when you're going to want to step up to a Danuser EP1530 or Blue Diamond's EX3 drive, paired to a 30 to 15-inch taper bit and a 4-foot variable extension. That way, torque rises, but rhythm stays productive. All right, now let's drop you onto a civil site where they're drilling pier footings through shale. Now, nothing less than a Blue Diamond EX4 HF or a Danuser EP2035 drive coupled to a carbide bullet bit and plenty of down pressure is going to finish that job without stalling. Okay, so with all of this in mind, let's review some of the core truths that you'll want to focus on when making your auger investment for your skid steer or CTL. Number 1, torque beats speed every single time. Be sure to bias your loadout for torque, and then that way, no matter what job you have now or maybe what machine you may be upgrading into at a later date, you'll have the right auger for the amount of torque that you need and for the size of hole that you plan on drilling and for the soil that you're going to be drilling into. Number 2, spec your machine's flow near the bottom of the drive's range. That's going to bias your setup toward torque rather than speed. 3, drives with integrated relief valves cost a bit more, but they turn a catastrophic stall into a harmless oil bypass. Be sure to be on the lookout for drives with integrated relief valves. Number 4, for some jobs it's a good idea to keep at least one spare set of teeth for each type of bit that you're going to be using on the job site. Making sure your bit is sharp can cut your drilling time in half. Number 5, and finally, future-proof your purchase. Hydraulic systems get stronger every model year, and depending on the manufacturer, Sometimes just bumping up to another level of drive, spending that extra $75 or $100 can move you into a full other torque class entirely today. And that's gonna allow you to avoid buying a whole new drive when you upgrade your loader tomorrow. Now, if you follow these 5 rules, you'll keep your holes straight, your gearbox healthy, and your crew on schedule, no matter what the ground decides to throw at you. All right, guys, so there you have it, our crash course in specking an auger that's gonna make your CTL or skid steer a hole drilling monster. Remember, pick torque over speed. Be sure to pair your machine's flow to the low end of the range for a drive's kind of flow range. Choose your bits based on the worst soil you'll see, and keep spare teeth handy. Now, if this video saved you some guesswork, be sure to hit that like button and be sure to subscribe to our channel here on YouTube as well. And if you like this video and want to see more content on the compact equipment segment, do us a favor and visit us at our website, compactequip.com. Thank you guys so much for watching. We always appreciate the time. We'll see you in the next one.